Now that we've finished task 1, GDP, which involved more of the formulas and definitions from chapter 3, we're going to move on to task number 2, which is more about chapter 4. Alright, so part 1 and part 2 in this section, in the task number 2 section, is a little bit trickier than it was for GDP because we're downloading 2 data sets and we're going to have to relate them. So I'm going to click on gapminder.org and I'm going to download in the data section infant mortality and life expectancy. So when you go to gapminder.org, there it is, I click on the data tab if I'm not already there from doing this problem earlier, go to the search bar and I'm going to type infant mortality, and there it is. So I click on the download Excel icon right here, and it's downloading it into my browser, and my browser is Chrome. I recommend Google Chrome or Firefox. They're both good browsers to use for this. And then I'm going to go to the search bar and I'm going to type life expect, and then I can see it has some options for me. Now the life expectancy at birth with projections is the one that I want for the particular semester I'm making this video. But sometimes this website changes, sometimes the titles change, so pay attention to whatever you're told to download right here. Whatever it writes there, that's what you want to download. So I'm going to click on the little Excel icon for that one. And I'm going to open both of those spreadsheets. So there's my project from before. There's the infant mortality. And there's the life expectancy. They're separate workbooks. So there's the project, there's the infant mortality, there's the life expectancy. So I'm going to start with infant mortality. I'm going to click Enable Editing. And I want to copy this About tab over into my project. So I'm going to click on the About. I'm going to double click and retype and say About Mortality. That way it's ready to go. Now I want to copy this tab into my project workbook because currently this is in this downloaded infant mortality file. Downloaded infant mortality file. So I'm going to right click on About Mortality. I'm going to select Move or Copy. And since I have my other workbook open, I want to copy it to that workbook. So I click on the little menu up here and I say put this in my project 1 workbook, which I named Project 1 Fall 17 Tucky Video, but you'll name Project 1 whatever your name is, although the semester is not a bad idea to give as well. And I'm going to tell it where I want it to place this. So I'm just going to have it put it at the end. So I'm going to say Move to End. I'm going to click Create a Copy. That way it leaves this version here in the infant mortality sheet that I downloaded, but it also puts it into that project workbook. I'm going to say OK. And there it is. See, it put it right at the very end. So I have my GDP, there's my About GDP, then these other things, which since they're kind of blank, you can always right click and delete them if you so desire, if it makes you happy. The 2 things you don't want to delete are GDP and About GDP, but you can get rid of the other stuff if you want. Now I've got About Mortality there. Great. The other way I could have done that is go to mortality, go up here to the top left corner, highlight the whole thing. So if you click in between that A and that 1, that corner up there, and you click Copy in the Home menu, and then you can go to your other spreadsheet, click on this little plus sign to put a new sheet in there, and then paste. And there it is, right? So you never know the difference. There's About Mortality, there's the copy-paste method. Either one will work. I'm going to delete it though because I don't need an extra one in there. Alright, now let me go back to the infant mortality, to the life expectancy. So I just did this for infant mortality. Now I'm going to enable editing. I'm going to go down here to About and double click and say About Life Expectancy. There we go. And you can choose to right click on the About Life Expectancy name, move or copy, select the correct workbook, that's the most important part, and then say you want to make a copy and put it at the end. So Move to End, create a copy, OK. And there it is. So now I have About GDP, which gives me the information about where that GDP data comes from. Now I have About Mortality and About Life Expectancy, all in here for me. Alright, so that's parts 1 and 2, or numbers 1 and 2 of part 2. Now I need to insert a new tab titled Mortality. So I'm going to go back to my project and I'm going to insert a new tab. And you can do that with the plus sign right here. That'll make a new sheet. You can also right click and select insert, and then it asks you, what do you want to make? Well, I want to make a new worksheet. So this top left corner is exactly what I want. So there you go. So either way, either the plus sign over here, which made sheet 13 for me, or right clicking and inserting, but either way you've got a new sheet. I'm going to double click it, so it'll be named sheet whatever. So for me it was sheet 12 because I've been messing around with this spreadsheet a bit. So I'm going to retitle it Mortality. Alright, and if you like, you can even title it Mortality whatever year you've got. So my year is 1960, so that's what I'm going to put in there. And heck, I could put GDP 1960. That wouldn't hurt anything. Alright, now I need to have some numbers in here to be able to run some calculations. So what I need is to get the data sets from my infant mortality and my life expectancy. So I'm going to go to infant mortality first because that's my X, I believe. Alright, and I need two things. I need all these countries listed in column A, and then I need the data for my particular year. So you can do this a couple ways, but the easiest way is to just move your cursor up to the column A and click so that it highlights the whole column. Then select copy or press Ctrl C to copy. Then go back to your spreadsheet, move up to the top to cell A1 and click paste, and there it goes. Infant mortality, there's your countries. Now I'm going to go back to my workbook that has the infant mortality. This is the downloaded one. You can see because it says indicator, gapminder, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to go to the right and find the column that has my data in it. You could also just delete all the columns you're not interested in. That's another option. But I'm just going to click on my column, which is 1960. So I'm going to move my cursor up to the top of 1960, which for me is letter FF. Click on it, and then I'm going to copy. Then I'm going to go back to my project, and I'm going to go right here to cell B1 and click paste. So you can right click and click paste. You can just click paste from up here, either one. Alright, I'm going to change this title right now. I want to call this Mortality. There you go, 1960. That way I've got a nice title. And you'll notice that got lost in there, so I'm going to move my cursor so that it's on the line between the letters B and C. It turns into that double-sided arrow. I double click, and it's going to make things nice and even. And I'm going to do the same thing for column A as well. That way it's nice. Alright, we'll clean all that up in a minute, but now I've got this data set in here. Now I have to go do the same thing for life expectancy. So I'm going to click on the life expectancy workbook. I'm going to click on data. I'm going to click on column A. I'm going to copy it with your right up here with the copy, and then I go over to my project. I like to leave a column in there between. I just find that visually easier for me. So I'm going to leave column C in there for right now. I'm going to go to D1, right click, and paste. Or you can just click on the paste icon, or you can hit Control V. Either one. Now I got to go get my numbers. So I'm going to go back to life expectancy. I'm going to scroll to the right, and I'll keep looking because there's a lot of data sets in here. But I want 1960. That's the year I want. For me. You're going to select whatever year you're going with. So here I have column GO. So I'm going to click on GO, but if you're 1965, you'll do GT. You'll do whatever year you've got. So I'm going to click on that. It highlights the whole column. I copy. Then I go to back to my project, go to cell E1 and paste. Alright, I'm going to rename this Life Expectancy 1960. That way it's there. And again, that got too long, so I'm going to move my cursor between the E and the F, double click, and there it makes it nice and wide. Alright, I'm also going to make all these bold, 12-point font. Might need to resize if you do that, which I do. But I want to make it nice and easy to read. And then I'm going to give it, I don't know, blue. There we go. Alright, so now I've got to clean all this up, but we're actually done with these downloaded ones. We don't need them anymore. So if you want, you can close them and you don't need to save them, but be sure that you're closing gapminder or infant mortality, so don't save. This is my project, so I definitely want to save this one. So I'm going to click Save up here. So it says Project 1. That's why I titled it. And go back to life expectancy, and I can close that as well. I don't need to save it. There, that way I won't get confused, and I'm only looking at my data set. Okay, so what we need to do now is clean all this up. And this is kind of the most difficult portion. We need to get rid of any countries where they won't match up, for starters. We need the two columns to perfectly match. So there are a lot of countries in the left-hand section, the mortality section, that are not in the right-hand section. So I'm going to click Abkhazia. I'm going to highlight Abkhazia and the empty cell next to it. I right-click and delete. And then I want to shift up because I want to shift the whole column up one. So I say OK. Now it's matching Afghanistan with Afghanistan. Great. This weird arc-rotary doesn't exist on the right-hand side. So I'm going to highlight those, right-click, delete, shift the cells up. So now I have Albania with Albania, Algeria with Algeria, American Samoa, Andorra, and so on. So you got to go through and you've got to make it so that they all line up. And that's going to take a few minutes because you really have a bunch of countries over here that don't actually exist on the other side. So you want to look left to right. Belize goes with Belize, Benin goes with Benin, Bermuda goes with Bermuda, and so on. And you want to keep going. And if you spot one that's not in the right place, then you can kind of use that to backtrack and figure out where it messed up. Now, don't be surprised if it sometimes names them slightly differently. That's, okay, that happens. So, for example, the Cook Islands are called Cook IS over here, but Cook Islands over here. That's not a big deal. There's another one, Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia does not exist anymore. So they got rid of it in the life expectancy data set, but they kept it over here in the infant mortality. So we're going to highlight Czechoslovakia and its value, right-click, and delete, and shift cells up. And you continue to do that all the way down. Oh, yeah, all the way down. There's another one, East Germany. That doesn't exist. Delete. So you keep doing this over and over and over till you get the two sides to perfectly match each other. There's another one, Eritrea and Ethiopia, right-click, delete. And you keep going and going and going. Oop, except don't do that, right? So you keep going all the way down the whole column. One that can get a little confusing is Korea. The Democratic Republic of Korea is actually North Korea. That's actually the same country. And South Korea is the Republic of Korea. So you can get rid of anything other than those two. But those two actually do match up. Also, Kyrgyz Republic is the same thing as Kyrgyzstan. And Laos is the same as Laos. So don't be too excited if they're looking mostly the same, then they're probably fine. Also, the saint countries over here in the life expectancy data, it writes it all out as saint, but over here on the left, it's writing ST. Don't be upset by that. That's no big deal. Here's one that's a little weird. South Ossetia and South Sudan are not the same, but they're lining up past that. If you scroll to the very bottom, you'll see that South Sudan's actually here, but it's blank. So if you want, you can highlight these two cells right here, copy, Control C, and move back up to South Ossetia, which is right here, and then click on South Ossetia and Control V and paste, and you'll have South Sudan actually match up. That one's a weird one, and it's because that country is a newer country. But it doesn't really matter because we're going to delete both of them in a minute anyway. But suffice to say, if you wanted them to line up, there you go. Although the year you're looking at might actually have data. My year wouldn't have data because South Sudan didn't exist in 1960. And if you play your cards right, by the time you've reached the end, the two columns should match. So I just got rid of the USSR and West Germany. So here I am, Virgin Islands. Now Yemen's a little weird, so I'm going to get rid of North and South Yemen. Right-click and delete both of those. So I highlighted both of them. That way Yemen matches up with the Yemen Republic. Yugoslavia doesn't exist anymore, so let me get rid of that. Delete. And then we can get rid of these rows on the bottom. So I'm going to get rid of all of this. And that actually leads me to my next bit, which is that I actually have to get rid of any country that doesn't have data in both. So if you look at Vietnam, Vietnam is fine. Western Sahara is no good because I don't have infant mortality there. West Bank and Gaza, no good because I don't have infant mortality. I'm just trying to look through. So anything that is missing on either one or both, like Tokolo, has to be gotten rid of. Now the way to do that is to highlight the row, the whole row, by clicking on the number of the row, like 245 to 246. And then I'm going to right click and delete. So I'm going to go back through the whole list and I'm going to delete any rows that don't have data for both values. You don't want to leave blanks on this one. You want to right click and delete. So anything where there is not a number on either one side or the other side. So I'm going to highlight both West Bank and Gaza and Western Sahara, right click and delete. They were both missing that infant mortality data. Same thing with Uzbekistan and Wallace at Futuna. Right click, delete. So you have to go through the whole thing, back through, and delete. You should have no blanks anywhere. Now this one, I'm not sure why that's showing up on that side, but I can move it over with this moving icon up here near the alignment. So I can realign it so that it looks like it's on the right side like everybody else. But you have to get rid of any countries that don't have data for both of them. Alright, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to pause, but I'm going to go through and delete all the countries, and I'll be back. And if it gets a little confusing, because some of these ones on the infant mortality are over on the left side, you can click on the whole column and make it all aligned to the right, if that's a little bit simpler for you. And it looks like the infant mortality for me for 1960 is a little bit sketchier than the than the life expectancy. So it looks like I'm deleting a lot more because they're missing the infant mortality. That's okay, right? And if they miss both, then you definitely want to get rid of them. So I'm going to get rid of both Serbia and Serbia excluding Kosovo. They're both going to go. Alright, so finish the rest of that. You're not ready for the next part though. This is still not good enough to actually do the calculations with. But you want to go through and you want to get rid of all the empties, right? There shouldn't be no double empties on both sides. In other words, every country that you leave in should be lined up Samoa to Samoa and have a number for both of them. And in case you're wondering, is there a way to select more than one row at the same time? Yes, there is. So to get rid of separated rows, what I do is I highlight 154, 155. I hold down my control button, and then I can see 151, that row also needs to be gotten rid of. So I click on 151. Now that's going to go. Then I see 146 all the way up to 141 has to go. So I can right click on any one of those regions that I highlighted, click delete, and it'll get rid of all of them. That's a unique feature to Excel. It's really nice. So I can see I need to get rid of Mayotte, so I hold down my control button, click on Martinique's row. Oop, there's the Marshall Islands. Oh, there's one that Marshall Islands had infant mortality but no life expectancy. That was a rare one. Click on Maldives, click on Macau. So I can right click and then delete, and it'll get rid of all of those countries that I selected. The downside to doing it that way is if you accidentally select too many rows, you're in trouble. Let me show you what I mean. Oh, Cook Island's another one that is the rare kind that doesn't have the value on the right but does have the value on the left. So if I select all these and I accidentally select the Central African Republic, there's no way to unselect the Central African Republic other than to lift up on my cursor, lift up on control, and just start again. So that's the downside to doing it that way, is that if you mess up, then you can get in trouble. So I always tell people just do a few at a time and get rid of all the ones that have either one or both of them blank. There we have it. So you can see that every country has two values, which is exactly what we wanted. Now this is not set up currently for us to do the next portion. What we have to do is we have to move this life expectancy column over, and we have to move it over to match with be next to the mortality, because we want mortality to be like our X and we want the life expectancy to be like our Y. Me personally, I'd like to leave the countries in there to prove that I did organize this by data set and everything, at least for right now. So I'm going to click on E, and that's going to highlight the whole column E. And what I want to do is I want to move it over. So if you let your mouse hover near the edge of the highlighted zone, it turns into this kind of four-sided arrow. That's actually giving you a direction, and you can click and hold down with your left mouse button, and you can drag that column to different places. Like I could drag it over to H, but I want to drag it next to column B, so I'm going to put it right there and put it in column C. So there's the infant mortality section on the left, and there's the life expectancy on the right. These are the countries for the life expectancy, these are the countries for the infant mortality, and right in here is the data set that we're actually interested in. And if you like, you can highlight all of that data, and you can go click on the borders and give it a nice border so you can see. And me personally, I like to center my data. Heck, I probably want to center all of this, so I'm going to center all of it. That way it's nice and easy to read. So I got everything nice and centered. I did that by highlighting all my columns and clicking on the center right here. You don't have to. That's just what I want to do. But I'm nerdy like that. All right, now our data set's all organized and we're ready to go on to the next portion. So I'll see you back here for that video.